You're listening to the Indie Echo Podcast, a showcase of independent singers, songwriters, and musicians. I'm Jordan of Hi5 Music. Today we are joined by Emily Potthast, a composer from Washington, D.C., who recently released her new album, Machines of Sound.
So I'm Emily Potthast, and I am originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Well, that area. And I moved to DC in 2006 after I graduated from college and love it here in DC. So I now kind of consider DC my hometown, but it's super vibrant and exciting here.
Was it work that brought you there?
It was just kind of wanting, so I grew up in a small town and I wanted something more. I wanted to move into a city, and my two options were Pittsburgh and DC. And DC just had a better job market. And so I work with computers, and I have a computer job right now, which I'm super thankful and feel super fortunate, especially during COVID, that I've been able to work from home. So I feel like that's been really awesome, and definitely counting my blessings with that. And it's definitely helped me writing music and things after work.
Have you always had these musical ambitions, like growing up?
That's a great question. And the answer is no, but I was always surrounded by music growing up. So my dad is a musician, songwriter, and growing up, he had this really cool music studio in our basement. And my sister and I thought it was super cool. So we'd sneak down or pretend like we were recording music videos.
That is super cool. I wish I had that.
Yeah. Bon Jovi, we made some Bon Jovi music videos. And so I just remember thinking it was really cool and showing my friends when they came over. And so I always kind of had that experience with music, being surrounded by it. And I took piano lessons starting from age 9. And I didn't love taking piano lessons, but my parents were like, "You're going to thank us someday." And I was like, I don't know. But I do thank them now for that. So that was kind of my musical training. And I didn't have ambitions of writing until I was older. There's two artists that are like super influential in my music and writing. One of them is Jan Tiersen, and the other one's Sigur Rós. But what happened was, so I finished taking piano lessons. I was free. I didn't have to play piano anymore. And to be honest, the only reason I practiced, I think, is because I didn't want my piano teacher to yell at me. But I was pretty decent at piano. I just I didn't love playing Mozart and Bach and all that stuff. But what happened was, I think it was in college, I saw the movie. Have you seen the movie Amélie? It's a French film.
A while ago, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I remember seeing that and hearing the score for it. And I was like, this music is awesome. And it made me want to play the piano again, because I had stopped playing for a couple of years at that point. And I was like, I actually want to play this. I really want to be able to play this and learn how to play this song. So it was hard to find the piano book. I had to look it up on eBay or something at the time. And I ordered a copy from France, which is where Jan Tiersen is located. And I think the shipping fee was something crazy, like, I don't know, $20. But I was like, I have to get this music. So I ordered it and came in the mail, and I was like, this is so cool. And I started playing, and it really revived my interest in piano and music. And that's when I realized I didn't have to play Bach or Mozart or, not that there's anything, those composers are awesome and like obviously game changers in music, but it just wasn't something I was passionate about playing. But this was music I was like really excited about.
Classical composers, they get a lot of props for being very complex in a lot of their work. But I find that some of the most memorable music is more simple.
Totally. Yeah.
You can even start with a simple melody and evolve into something greater, which is some of my favorite music and scores as well.
Yeah, that you totally hit the nail on the head there with what I was thinking at the time. And I remember it made the music more accessible, because when I heard the songs, I was like, this is beautiful music and this is really moving music, but it's something I could play. And I felt like it was something I could write, and I didn't have to play an F sharp major, crazy arpeggios and notes all over the place. It could be something simple. And so after that, I was like, I want to write a song. So I think this was 2004 or 2005. Don't quote me if that's wrong. But I wrote...
We're going to fact check you later.
Yeah, fact check me later. I was feeling in this super emotional place, and decided that I wanted to try writing a song. I didn't know really anything about music theory at the time. And I was just like, everything was based on ear, what sounds good. So obviously very heavily influenced by Jan Tiersen. I sit down by the piano and I'm like channeling my inner emotions and write this song. And I decided to title it Season's End. And so I play it for a couple friends and a couple people, and they're like, yeah, we like that. That's pretty cool. Can you play that Season End song again? And I was like, sure. So it was like my party trick, like playing Season's End and some Jan Tiersen songs. So eventually, as mentioned, my dad has a recording studio. So I was like, hey, what would you think of recording me playing that song? And then some other like Jan Tiersen and maybe some Smashing Pumpkins music, different music I collected that I liked. And then that one song that I wrote. And he was like, sure. So I recorded on his keyboard and put this together, get this little CD, and it was like Emily Potthast piano album. And I was like so excited. I did my artwork for it, printed it out on like an inkjet printer. And I think I shared it with a couple friends and some family members. And I thought they would listen to it maybe once or twice. And that would be it. But I still wanted to share it. So a cool experience with that was that over the next couple of years, I would have family members come to me. And actually, a really good friend who was also in the music industry. So I really valued her opinion and judgment. And they were like, wow, I love listening to your piano CD when I'm feeling down or feeling stressed. And I was like, really? I was like, you still listen to that? That's cool. And so it really kind of planted a seed, and the idea that my music could touch other people and could help them, stress relieving type thing. So that kind of planted a little bit of a seed.
Yeah, that's awesome, because as an artist, always getting your first major work out there is a big deal. Just personally, you don't even care if people hear it necessarily, but if someone does, then it's like, oh, you listen to me?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Because I think my one friend who was a musician, she had this blog, and it was like, name some of your favorite songs. And one of them was Season's End by Emily Potthast. And I was like, what? Really? And so I thought that was super cool. So it is kind of a cool feeling for sure.
Just a random point, going back to Sigur Rós, and their especially their Untitled album.
Yeah, so good.
Simple piano melodies that just build over time, and it's the most euphoric and atmospheric thing. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought them up, because they are another super influential band to me. And so they're actually probably the reason that I do YouTube videos and wanted to start out with that. So after college, I had kind of stopped playing music. I was actually in a band for about half a year. I was in the band Carousel Rogues. And they ended up moving to Nashville, which they still are. They're playing music, awesome band. Recommend checking them out. But I was, my friend Caitlin was like, hey, do you want to play keyboards with us? And I was like, sure. I haven't played for a long time, but why not? This is getting back to Sigur Rós eventually, I swear.
Okay.
This is like a long version of it. Don't worry. And so I played with them, and I was pretty bad at practicing. So I was kind of embarrassing. We played at a couple of venues in Baltimore, and I took my sheet music on stage with me. And I remember one of my friends' dad was like, Emily kind of scowls when she looks at the audience. And and I was like, no, I was just reading my piano sheet music. And so it was like an interesting experience. I wouldn't say I was a great performer on stage, but it was super fun, like meeting other musicians and being involved in that scene. So apart from that though, I kind of stepped away from music again. But what happened was I somehow discovered the Sigur Rós. You've probably seen this video, Untitled #1 on YouTube. The one where it's like the little kids wearing the gas mask and it's like super epic. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember seeing that and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, this song is epic and it's so moving and it's so emotional. And I think it got like music video of the year. That's another one you're gonna have to fact check me on. I don't know for sure, but I was like, this is so beautiful. And I was like, I don't know if it's the video or the music or the combination, but it just like was really moving. And that for me was a turning point when I realized that I actually really liked the visual elements that music brought along well. And I think that was one of the first time I heard music where it felt like, not to sound dramatic, but it felt like time stood still and it felt like it was almost otherworldly. I was like, are they even human? Their music is like super magical. And so and
their live performances too.
Yes.
I haven't seen them live, but the videos I've seen, they're just, I'm like, I want to be there, Yes.
I was at a Sigur Rós concert. I think it was Maryland or Virginia outdoors. And I've also been to a Jonesy concert, and it's epic in person too, for sure. And so.
And actually talking about the visual element, that is a good segue to your new album.
Yes.
Machines of Sound, available now.
Yeah, well, coming out Tuesday, but by the time you hear this, it will be available. Yes.
Each track, it's very visually evocative for me. So like within 10 seconds, I'm in a film scene. I'm in a game score.
That's awesome.
Or something like that. And was that intentional? Do you like see things when you make your music?
So Machines of Sound, which I am super excited about, this is going to be my first full album release, like officially to the public, not that I'm just handing out to relatives. So I'll tell you kind of the evolution of that and how the visual elements work in that as well. So what happened is during COVID, I've been able to work from home, which is awesome, super thankful for. And I've also been able to focus on things I'm passionate about and kind of figure out like, what do I want to do with my life? What are passion things that I want to focus on? And one of them is definitely music. And so having that space where I'm home all the time and just thinking about these things. So I started playing around in GarageBand and Logic Pro. And typically before that, I'm primarily a pianist and keyboard player. But I was like, it'd be kind of fun to play around in Logic Pro synthesizers and see what happens. And so I wrote the song. I took one of my piano sounds and I tried to add some synthesizers to it. And it had like some arpeggiated bass and some different effects on it. And I was like, this sounds kind of cool. And I remember thinking it kind of reminded me of like the Stranger Things soundtrack, which I'm too afraid to watch that show on my own, but I've seen the intro like soundtrack, and that's about as far as I got.
Yeah, but the first couple episodes are scarier than
It's kind
You
of
would think.
scary. Yeah.
But then you get to know the cast and everything, and it warms up later.
I've heard it's good. So anyway, so I record it and I was like, this is kind of cool. So let me email it to my friend Brian, who's kind of a music enthusiast as well. And my parents, I love emailing my parents all my songs. They're my number one fans. So I emailed it to them and I was like, hey, I wrote this it's different than what I normally write. It's trying out synthesizer electronic music. What do you all think? And so then I sent it. And the next morning, I listened to my song again on my iPhone and I was like, ugh, this sounds kind of weird on my phone. Like, I don't know, maybe I'll just throw it out. We'll see. But then I checked my email and my friend Brian responds and he's like, this is cool. He's like, I think this could be the beginning of something epic. And I was like, well, okay, well, maybe I won't throw it out then. Like, I don't know if people are into it. And so my parents wrote back and they're like, yeah, we like this. It sounds like it could be part of a movie or a film. So I was like, well, that's pretty cool. So as far as the visual element, what I did was like, well, I want to share this and I want to see what other people think. So for me, my way of sharing music is through YouTube for a couple different reasons. I love the visual element that you can add to it because it kind of is more interactive in that way. And also it's more accessible because not everyone has Spotify or not everyone has iTunes on their phone or different things. So everything, once I create a song, I try to think of like what visual element I have in mind. So for that one, I was like, definitely, okay, it's got to be electronic looking, maybe some music waves. So I had this app on my phone where you can create the music video for it and just put like, threw the song on there, made a little video for it with like electronic lines and something to kind of display what I thought it sounded like visually. So I posted it on YouTube, Reddit, a couple places. I was just curious, let me throw it out into the world and see what happens, see what kind of response I get from it. So I did. And surprisingly, a fair amount of friends were like, whoa, this is really cool. Yeah, I definitely like it. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I could try out doing more of this synthesizer stuff. Like, it's kind of fun. So maybe I could experiment with it. So I just got into this writing mode where I was writing a song. Like, I went through a 3 or 4 week period where I was sometimes writing a couple songs a day or maybe at least a couple songs a week. And just, I wasn't even sleeping that much because I was just had this really strong drive to like, just keep writing songs. I think because I was kind of pumped up that people were into the song and pumped up that it sounded kind of cool. And so I got into this mode and this loop where I would like write a song, send it to my friend Brian and my parents to try to help get like feedback on the sound. And so it just became this really fun and exciting thing. And it was like this, how they talk about flow state with music. And I'm sure as a musician that it's kind of hit or miss. Like sometimes it felt like almost like a flow state type experience. But at the same time, I was pushing myself to write. And so with each song, I would just kind of like after writing it. So the first thing was like trying to think of the emotions that I wanted to convey with each song. And then the later part was the visual element. So I tried to match it with what it meant to me. And yeah. Are there particular
other composers or film scores that you were trying to directly inspire you, or was it more, I'm just going to try things and see what works?
Definitely had some inspirations in there. So both musically and non-musical inspirations. So the 4th song, Atticus Dreaming, was very heavily inspired by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. It's either Atticus Ross or Atticus Rose.
Ross,
they
yeah.
did the soundtrack. Okay, they did the soundtrack for Social Network, which I love because it's really simple
Great
piano,
score. Yep.
super emotional, kind of like a minor key. And so that was for sure the inspiration for Atticus Dreaming. There's another song on the album, song number 2. So this wasn't necessarily any inspiration of a musical artist, but this song was actually inspired after watching the show Normal People, which is on Hulu. And I remember I was like, this show is so emotional and I don't know why, but it got to the point where I was like crying almost every other episode. And I was like, why am I so emotional? Hardly anything's happening in this show, but it's just the way that it's written and the way that the actors portray it, or is like this so emotional, but like so little is happening. And in a way I was like, that's how I feel about how I want to write music, where it's like, you know, notes moving very slowly from note to note, but at the same time, somehow able to convey a lot of emotion. And so I just felt like the show, that it was like probably the most emotional show I've ever watched. I don't know why. And so I was absolutely thinking of that show when I wrote the song Waking Up, which is number 2 on the album. And it kind of, you know, reminded me a little bit too of Ireland in a way. I've never been there, but I'd love to go someday. But
have you been outside the US before?
I have, yeah. I've been to a fair amount of places all over. I would love to someday go to Iceland because my favorite musicians are from there. So Sigur Rós and Ólafur Arnalds. Like, I was like, I don't know. Is there something in the air there? Something about Iceland like just creates this beautiful music. So I would love to be able to go. That's on my bucket list.
You did a great job of titling your songs because they all sound
Thank
like their
you.
titles. And was that a conscious decision? Did you go back and forth on different names?
It definitely was a conscious decision. Yeah. So believe it or not, secrets out here. The album title was originally supposed to be A Theory of Everything, because I'm really into quantum physics, like the pop science type. And so I was trying to like come up with these names that were like quantum physics-y. But as I started writing it, I was like, no, that's not the name of the album. And so I started hearing like it was kind of mechanical and just electronic things. And I was like, okay, what are different ways that I can word that? And so that's where I came up with Machines of Sound. And then after I came up with a name, which I think I'd written maybe 3 or 4 songs at that point, I was like, I then wanted the theme to be different types of machines. So that's when I wrote like Cloud Machine, which is supposed to sound like literally a cloud machine. So some of the songs I actually came up with a name first and then wrote the songs second.
That's interesting.
So the first YouTube video I ever published was 2016. And what happened was I had written a song. I think this is like the second song I had ever written. So it came many, many years after my first song. But I wrote a song and I wanted to share it with friends and family. So the song was in memory of my sister who had passed away in 2009. She was my older sister. She was like my number one fan of everything. Like she was just always sticking up for me. And we definitely fought. We were definitely siblings, but she just thought I was so cool. And I was like, why does she think I'm cool? But you know, that's cool. And so when I had this thing in 2016, I had this thought. I was like, I had gone through the grief process over a period of many years. And actually, music was something that really helped me get through that grief process. And in some ways, I felt like I almost felt her in the music that I was listening to. And I was almost able to connect with her on this level. And it was just, I don't know, it was just something that really helped me get through certain times and through certain emotions. And so I wanted to write a song for her. And so we had an ongoing joke that she nicknamed me once E minor. And the story behind that is I used to be in a band, as I mentioned before, Carousel Rogues. And we met up with another band, and the guy in the other band thought it would be funny to call me E minor. So if you're familiar with music theory and music notes, you know that E minor chord looks like capital E lowercase m. So it's kind of like my name, M, short for Emily. And so my sister saw someone post that on MySpace, and she thought that was like super cool. So she called me E minor, and I was like, all right, well, if I'm E minor, then you're E major, because she was my older sister. And her name also started with E, Erin. And so that's the story of her and E major. And so in my head, I was like, I'm going to write a song for her, and it has to be an E major because that's her key. Like that's her. And so I'd only written and played stuff in minor keys before because I really into like melancholy, emotional music. So it was a bit of a struggle to write in my first major chord song. But, you know, I sat down, I wrote it on the keyboard, added some little effects here in GarageBand, and I was like, this is pretty good. I was like, I feel like this is better than anything I've ever written, which is the one other song. So it's really better than the other song, I thought. And so when I realized that I liked it and I wanted to share it with my family and my friends, so we had this Facebook site for my sister, like in memory of her. And the only way that I could share it with people was through basically making a YouTube video, because it was really accessible and something that people could click on and listen to. You know, they didn't have to have any app installed like SoundCloud or Spotify or whatever. They could just straight up listen to the video. So that's what I did. I found some stock footage of some clouds floating, someone floating through the sky, and I posted it. And I got a lot of, you know, people just saying like, oh, this is so beautiful. Thanks so much for posting this. And other people were like, oh, I cried listening to this. And it was just really, really great to hear that it did touch other people. And I was able to put that piece of work out there in memory of her. It was kind of funny after I posted it on YouTube over the years, more and more people would find it. And I would get comments from like, Erin, can you send me the notation for this song? Or like, well, so I think it was basically people with the name Erin were searching for a song for their name and found it, which is awesome. So that was kind of my start in YouTube. Do you use Logic Pro too? I love it.
I use Ableton.
Yeah. Oh, you do? Got it. So one thing with Ableton is I noticed it didn't have musical notation, which was, since I write some of the notation, sometimes I'll write like computer notes first and notation, and I realized that it didn't have that in Ableton, but otherwise it looked really cool. In Logic, you can export the notation as MIDI, right? I think. Yeah, so in Logic Pro, you can view the notation right in there. And like you can view the MIDI version of it and then also the actual notation. I haven't exported it yet, but I'm sure that you can. And there are still things I'm learning with it all the time. I initially got into it because a lot of the producers I look up to, they'll like DJ as well. So I've done a bunch of DJing, and Ableton is great for remixing on the fly and doing mashups and things like that. Nice. Yeah, I saw in one of your photos, I was like, that is an epic looking crowd that you were DJing to. Oh, yeah, on your website, on your about section, I was like, what is going on? Is he at a rave or something? I was
Whoops.
So can you tell us about that? Or
I don't know which one you saw, because I've done a few
it's on your
conventions. I've done some like there's some DC anime conventions that have like a rave section of the night.
What?
And I've done those before.
Like Washington, DC?
Yeah.
I'm missing out, obviously.
DC and Pennsylvania. So both your necks of the woods. I've been there.
There we go. All right. 2022.
But my probably highest profile thing was I went to UMBC in Baltimore.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And right at their peak, it was the spring. It wasn't homecoming. It was like their spring concert series or whatever.
Okay.
Their headliner was Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, like
nice.
At Peak Thrift Shop. And
okay.
I think they had booked them just before they got really big, so they got really lucky. But I got an email because I had done like a different student events, just like smaller dance parties. They don't really have frats there or anything, so it wasn't like that. But their events person contacted me like, we need someone to open and pump up the crowd before them.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, you gotta put that on your website, like opener for Macklemore.
Yeah, I have it on my resume, but I should advertise that more. Yeah.
So the album is divided into two types of songs, essentially. And we have the ambient, calm, piano, synth noises, and then we've got the electronic, more up-tempo, more upbeat stuff. So it really depends on what mood you're in. And my dad, the musician, it was like, because I wanted to actually divide the album in half. All the slow songs in the beginning, all the fast songs at the end. My dad's like, no, you gotta mix it up. I love hearing my mom's feedback on my songs when I send it to her, because she'll come up with kind of comical responses. But I was like really proud of the Into the Bright Side one, and I sent it to her and I was like, what do you think? She's like, it's all right. She's like, I don't really like songs in a major key though. And so It was kind of funny because I think the song was like too cheery for her. But so super excited about this album, really curious to see how people react to it, and hoping to get a good amount of people to hear it. And really what I want to do next, and what I want to keep doing, is of course writing music. And I really want to grow as a musician and grow as a composer. And I'm actually taking lessons right now at the Washington Conservatory of Music with awesome teacher. His name's Jeffrey. And I really want to grow in my music theory in the sense that, like, I do use music as a language. And I like that it's a universal language that you can, and it can speak things to people that words can't. And I think it can evoke emotions that words can. And right now I have a certain vocabulary, and my goal is to expand on that vocabulary so I can tell bigger stories, and, still using the simple words, but sometimes adding some fancier words in there. So my goal is to keep moving, keep writing. I would love to, at least on the side at some point, write music for films or, independent films, whatever, anything, just because I feel like a lot of music that I've shared with some people, they're like, that sounds like it should be in a movie, or you sound like you should write for films or TV. And I was like, that would be awesome. I would love to do that. And so with that said, I also want to keep writing music for myself as well, that I can share with others as personal projects that aren't necessarily in a film. But in a way, film's nice because that is something that reaches a broader audience.
Machines of Sound is available wherever you get your music. Links to the album and Emily's YouTube can be found in the show notes. To hear her music and all the other artists featured on Indie Echo, you can follow the show's Spotify playlist from the Instagram link on @Indie Echo Podcast. Indie Echo is a production of Hi5 Music, an online production studio that turns your bedroom pop songs into Spotify-ready hits. Do you or someone you know want to be featured on the show? Let me know by filling out the contact form link on Instagram at Hi5Music. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you next time.